Coffee break with Jimmy. Well, I guess the blockade is still on. I guess Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz again. They're not letting anybody out. Well, we got a blockade on it anyway. They can't make up their minds. You can't trust anything that Iran says. I mean, that's bottom line. You just really can't trust anything they say or do. And, I've talked about this. Of course, I've talked about this several times. Yesterday, I talked about Nick Shirley and what's going on over there with this Mia Bonta. Her husband's is Rob Bonta. He's a lieutenant attorney general of California. Says he's got this fraud for it's in hand. They're taking care of all the fraud, for hospice and Medi-Cal. And now she's putting out a bill, I guess, that's going to keep, which actually it creates where you get the freedom of speech, First Amendment, freedom of speech. And I guess they're trying to stop any kind of investigative journalists that don't belong to ABC, CBS, or NBC to be able to look into anything, to expose any fraud. So that stuff is still going on, and this you can look into my podcast from yesterday and give you a little more about it. But I just had to touch base about the Strait of Hormuz and how Iran's changed their mind again. Now, I keep saying boots on the ground. I know that's what Iran wants us to do when you think about it. I thought more and more about it. Boots on the ground. They want us to put boots on the ground. There's people in America that don't want boots on the ground, and that might change some voting there. That's why I don't think Trump is doing that yet. And but it may have to get to that because we got to get rid of their leadership. Number one, Iran cannot go back to the leadership with the mullahs, and they just can't. So I don't know what Trump has got in mind there, but I'll follow his lead. I believe in President Trump. But anyway, I just want to touch on that a little bit. And I really want to talk about today was I heard this the other day, and I'm going to give you a list here. It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Every year they induct so many members in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And, my favorite group back I think it was 2022 is when they're actually inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My favorite group is Judas Priest. And they were actually inducted in 2022, which I thought it was an awful long time for them to be before they were inducted. When they were inducted, they were also inducted with Dolly Parton, okay, what was his name? He was with the Commodores, Lionel Richie, okay. And even Lionel Richie said, "I can't believe it. I'm inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Lionel Richie and Judas Priest." I mean, you would never put those two names together. Not that I don't like Lionel Richie's music, but let's face it, he's not rock and roll. Maybe he was a little bit borderline rock and roll when he was with the Commodores, but he's not rock and roll. Dolly Parton, I'm sorry, I love her music, but she's country. How can she get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Now, let me give you the list of the bands that are going to be inducted this time around, okay? Phil Collins. Now, Phil Collins, he's got one of the best drum riffs, that I can feel it coming in the air at night. That is a bad drum riff, okay? So I get him going in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he's a rock and roller. Billy Idol's another rock and roller, belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Iron Maiden is another metal rock and roll band. Let's see. This got two names. It's as Joy Division and Dan Archer, or New Order. Joy Division and New Order. Not rock and roll. Oasis. Not rock and roll. Sade or Jade or Sade. She's not rock and roll. She's got a good voice. These are all good musicians, but they're not rock and roll. Luther Vandross. Come on, he's R&B and soul. He's got a great voice, but he's not rock and roll. Wu-Tang Clan, and this is hip hop. Okay, Graham Parsons, which he's passed away already, and Queen Latifah. This is also soul music. Queen Latifah's in there. This Graham Parsons, I think he's country. This Linda Creed, she's a songwriter, and she did background music for other bands, and she's soul, R&B, and pop. Most of these bands are not rock. I mean, hence the name, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That means you gotta have some kind of rock and roll, whether it's soft rock, hard rock, metal rock. It's got to be some type of rock and roll. Now let me give you some bands that hasn't made it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet, okay? And you could probably connect some of these. Boston. Their first album. There has never been an album that every song on that album is great. Boston, their first album, I mean, Don't Look Back, another album that they had, it was nothing like their very first album had every song, a long time, more than a feeling. I mean, come on, you can go on and on on that album there. REO Speedwagon. Hey, come on. REO Speedwagon, that's one of the best rock bands of all time. They're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Kansas. Okay, those three groups right there, Boston, REO Speedwagon, and Kansas, Dust in the Wind, come on. These are great rock songs, been around forever. These guys aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, this really bothers me. This next name I'm going to mention, he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One of the best riffs ever done, and riffs of guitar ever done. Turn 'em up, Ted. I mean, come on. Ted Nugent is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? That is so unbelievable. Now, granted, there are some people that didn't want to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for whatever reasons. Maybe they didn't get inducted right away. Maybe others were picked over them. Or Ted Nugent he's a conservative, a very conservative, and maybe he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because he's conservative. Sammy Hagar, please, Sammy Hagar. I mean, we're talking about Montrose. Sammy Hagar on his own. Then he joined Van Halen. Come on, and now he's with Chickenfoot. So Sammy Hagar, my favorite singer in rock, he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Oh my God. It's the Scorpions. That's my wife's favorite group. The Scorpions are, come on, the Zoo? Come on, it's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Oh my God. Nazareth, Hair of the Dog, one of the most popular songs of all time in rock. Hair of the Dog, now you're messing with the son of a bitch. Come on. Okay, Jethro Tull, the Pied Piper of Ian Anderson, the Pied Piper of rock and roll. He plays a flute like nobody ever has in rock and roll. Ronnie James Dio. Not only did he sing with Black Sabbath, he sang with Rainbow. He also had a career on his own, a long career, a lot of good songs. Ronnie James Dio is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Thin Lizzy. All these bands, I just named all the bands that were in. I mean, come on, Luther Vandross, he's got a nice voice. But how can he get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame above all these other ones that I just mentioned? Okay, BTO, Backman Turner Overdrive. Oh, come on. I mean, that was before my time, but there's the Blue Oyster Cult. Come on, Godzilla. I mean, John Bon Jovi, Foghat, Slow Ride. Come on. These guys aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know who votes these people in, for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. or what their criteria is. I know part of the criteria is you've got to be around for at least 25 years. And I don't know if they have to put out so many albums. I mean, there are some bands like, okay, let's we'll call Nazareth. Nazareth only had a couple of albums, and so they weren't really that big. They weren't that popular, but they were popular during that time. But you're talking like Bon Jovi, like Boston, and Kansas, Ted Nugent. Oh my God, Sammy Hagar. These guys aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I tell you what. I don't know where they're casting their votes at. And it's almost like it's like when Pete Rose still isn't in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, I guess he is now. I guess they lifted the ban on him after he died. So I guess he's going in the Baseball Hall of Fame now. Or all these bands have got to go turn to dust before any of them get turned into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All those ones that I just mentioned, I thought were there already. And they're not there. Something's got to... They got to do something different or change the name, the Music Hall of Fame, because hence the name, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You got to have some rock in there, and the harder the rock, for me, the harder the rock, the better. Like I said, my favorite group is Judas Priest. Iron Maiden, they're just like Judas Priest. They're coming in the Hall of Fame this year. Phil Collins, I like a lot of Phil Collins music. I'm surprised he's not there with Genesis already, with him and Peter Gabriel. I think he is with Genesis. Phil Collins was there with Peter Gabriel, and now he's going in on his own. I can see that, okay? But these other bands that I just mentioned to you, somebody they need to do something. These bands need to be mentioned in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, I mean, come on. It's one of the best rips of Stranglehold of all time. One of the best rock songs of all time is Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. Come on. Blue Oyster Cult, Godzilla, come on. Oh my God. Okay. These are a lot of songs that I rock to. They've been in the business well over 25 years because I rocked with these guys 40 some years ago, 45 years ago, 50 years ago, and I rocked to a lot of these bands. And I'm really surprised that they're not there. So anyhow, that's really what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I know there are some bands that chose not to go in. I know when Rush was inducted, and that was a few years back, they were a little bit upset because it took so long for Rush to get inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I remember Alex Lifeson was saying, blah, 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 blah. Like he was saying like all this blah, blah, blah stuff. Say that's why you're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It took this long. And Geddy Lee and the drummer, I'll think of his name in a minute. My favorite drummer, his name slips Neil Peart, the best drummer of all time. And of course, some say John Bonham was, and John Bonham was a great drummer for Led Zeppelin. But I still say Neil Peart was the best. So anyway, I said my piece about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Tell me what you think, okay? And let's hope that the Strait gets opened up again, or we're gonna have to take the leadership of Iran out of there. Get the people of Iran to lead this country. They want freedom more than anything. And they want the president. They want the United States to keep. You know, some people say that Israel is the one that brought this all on. I don't believe that. I believe the United States is that this is time. It's time that Iran gets taken off the stage and the mullahs get taken off the stage. And they have. I think 3 sets of leadership has been killed already in the last few months since they've been in Iran and since this military excursion started. And hopefully this will come to an end pretty soon, but maybe not. Maybe they won't put boots on the ground because so many people don't want boots on the ground. Nobody wants any more death. Nobody wants any more war. But Iran has got to go. That's all there is to it. So anyhow, this is Coffee Break with Jimmy. Please excuse my little outburst there about rock and roll, but I just thought it had to be mentioned. I mentioned that I was brought to my attention the other day who was going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then there was, and all these other bands that haven't been there yet that aren't inducted. I think they need to look at that really hard. Okay, so this is Coffee Break with Jimmy. Please subscribe hit the like, and share and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you next time on Coffee Break. Thanks.